Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Movies and Brews. Feels like it's been a while since I did another video, even though it's been only a couple days, but I was gonna make this video a little bit earlier, but I really needed some time to let this movie saturate because I didn't come out of this movie feeling how I expected. So, let's talk about Captain America Civil War. Alright, so Captain America Civil War is not only the sequel to Captain America the Winter Soldier, it's almost an Avengers movie in itself. Well, it kind of feels like one. It's definitely being advertised as one. And this movie is adapting my personal favorite Marvel comic that I've ever read, and that would be the comic by the same name of Civil War, which follows the same premise of the movie. It's just a document of some kind is introduced that basically causes a rift in between two different factions of the Avengers. So obviously going into this movie, I was very, very excited. So let's just get to the point. Was Captain America Civil War any good? Yeah, but it should have been great. First off, let's start with the things that I liked about this movie. Without even thinking about it, Black Panther, definitely the best character in the movie. I didn't really expect much out of him. I don't know that much about Black Panther, to be honest. I don't own any of the comics that he's in. The only comic that I know that he was in was the Civil War comic itself. So I went into this movie basically blind as to the lore involving Black Panther, and I knew nothing about him. And I was very, very pleased to see what they did with his character. I thought Chadwick Boseman did an excellent job as T'Challa, and I'm really, really excited to see the movie coming out next year. Another thing I liked about the movie were some of the small-scale fights. The choreography was a lot more gritty and a little bit more real than some of the previous Marvel movies. They definitely adapted a little bit of the shaky cam style. That kind of pisses off certain people, but I happen to like it. You've seen it in movies like Taken and action movies kind of like that. So it was really cool to see that brought to a Marvel movie. I didn't really expect to see anything like that. Another thing I loved about this movie, probably my favorite part about the movie, was the end fight between Tony, Winter Soldier, and Steve. If there was ever a part in the movie where I was just like, oh shit, like it's getting real, that was this point in the movie. I was on the edge of my seat from the beginning of it to the end of it, and it definitely was the shining moment of the entire movie for me. Now, let's get to the things that I didn't like about this movie. First thing I didn't like, which shouldn't really be a secret by now for Marvel, it's almost a trend with them, which I'm really not happy to say, but it's true. The villains in this movie, to me, were just totally useless. They were shit. First off, you have Crossbones, or Rumlow, is carried over from the Winter Soldier, and he's in the trailers and everything, and he's a big, important part of the comic, but he's ultimately only in the movie for like 5 minutes. I don't think that's a spoiler to tell you what his screen time is. So he's only in the movie for like 5 minutes. And I'm left asking the question, why did you even bother to keep him alive at the end of the movie? I mean, the fucking building fell on the guy, so it's already a stretch that he was left alive in the first place. But then to use him in this movie and underutilize him, it just didn't really make that much sense to me. And the movie's main villain, Zemo, he didn't need to be there at all. You already have the perfect story on your own without any villains. You have the Sokovia Accords being introduced, causing a rift in between the two factions of the Avengers. You have Tony Stark on one side and Captain America on the other side, and whatever Avengers choose to pick their sides. That's all you need to tell the story of this movie. Instead, they tried to introduce another just hollow villain, and it really didn't add anything to the story. If anything, it detracted from the story, and I just felt it was really unnecessary. The actor that plays him did a fine job, but they tried desperately to make you care about this guy, and in the end, you're left wondering, why are you here? Like, you had the tools to make this movie great without him even in the picture. So he was just totally useless. Another thing I disliked about this movie, it's not the character itself. It's the way that they use the character, and that would be Spider-Man. I thought Tom Holland was an excellent Spider-Man. He's definitely the most entertaining since the first Spider-Man, which I'm a big fan of. It's not so much his performance of it or how they utilize the character, it's just his being in the movie in the first place. And they're adapting Civil War. Spider-Man is a huge part of the Civil War comic book, so it almost felt impossible to make a Civil War movie without Spider-Man, but I think people were already prepared for that because he wasn't in this universe. So when Marvel got the rights back, not got the rights, they share with Sony now, I feel like they just felt the need to put him in the movie just because they could. And that's exactly what it feels like in this movie. His introduction into the movie is just lazy. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, he's there now. Cool. And then by the end of his run in the movie, it's just kind of like, okay, that was that. See you next time. And that's it. It's just an introduction to him, and I really just think that it should have saved it for his own movie instead of using him in this movie. And the next thing that I kind of had a problem with, it was not only a pro but a con for me. In my last video where I was talking about the Winter Soldier, I said that I was very excited to see a little insight into the Winter Soldier's past. I was very excited for that. But I also didn't want it to take away from this movie. And in the end, it ended up doing exactly that. I thought this movie, based on all the trailers and all the synopsis and everything that I read about it, was going to concentrate solely on the Sokovia Accords and that whole battle happening between the two factions of the Avengers. In the end, this movie, to me at least, felt like it concentrated more on Bucky and Steve's relationship than it did about the Civil War, and that really turned me off because like I said before, you have the perfect story to adapt. You don't need any of these villains or any of these secondary plot devices or anything. You have the perfect story to tell, and they just chose not to run with that. They didn't bring that to the forefront. The Civil War resolves itself 3/4 of the way through the movie for the most part. After that, it's basically a personal battle between Steve, Bucky, and Iron Man. So really the whole Bucky backstory thing, it's detracted from what should have been the main plot device of the movie, which is the Sokovia Accords, which are barely even mentioned throughout the movie. In the first act, it's a big piece, but then through the rest of the movie, it just kind of dissipates. So at the end of the day, I did enjoy Captain America Civil War, but it was not nearly as great as it should have been. You have all these awesome characters. You have the Vision, you have Black Panther, you have the Winter Soldier, Captain America, Iron Man, SpiderMan finally. You have all these characters, but you didn't use them the right way. You didn't make me care. We're 12 films into this franchise now, and I am supposed to care when I see these guys fighting each other. I should be fucking heartbroken when I see these characters coming to blows with each other. And the only time I felt something even remotely close to an emotion when these people were fighting was the end fight sequence between Cap, Tony, and Bucky. And that's not good. You have the greatest Marvel story, in my opinion, being turned into a movie, and you just kind of were lazy about it, and that just really pissed me off. So I understand I sound like I'm kind of on the negative side about this movie, and while I may be conveying it like that, there were a lot of parts of this movie that I did enjoy. So I've been racking my brain for the past couple days between two ratings for it, because like I said, I wanted to let this movie saturate for a little bit. I didn't want to jump the gun and give it a bad rating or anything like that. So I've been stuck between a very low free well drinks or a very high Stone Cold Sober. And after much deliberation and thought, I decided to give Captain America Civil War a very low free well drinks, because like I said, while I did have some blaring negatives with the movie, I still did enjoy a good amount of it, and it didn't necessarily detract any from the Marvel Cinematic Universe at all. If anything, it sets it up even further. So if that was their goal, then good job, Marvel. So have you seen Captain America Civil War? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Is it somewhere in the middle for you? Comment below. Let me know what you thought. Don't forget to subscribe to Movies and Brews and tune in next week for another episode. Cheers.